What up, investors? I'm Phan and welcome to another edition of Phanance, where I keep you plugged into the markets. This week, we're talking about government shutdown 2.0 averted, and I'll give you the latest on the trade beef between China and the US. So let's do this. So let's check in with the markets this past week. Here's the 5-day chart with the S&P, Dow, and the NASDAQ. Remember how the market got dog walked last week? Well, it's creeping back, baby. The reason? You get two. Government shutdown is now off the table, and we got some light at the end of the tunnel in the trade discussions with China. Let's do a refresh. In case you forgot, the government was partially shut down this past December. National parks and zoos were closed, government workers weren't getting paid. It wasn't good. This lasted for 35 days until January 25th, when the president and Congress came to a temporary resolution that would reopen the government for 3 weeks while they hash out the deals of the border wall. That 3-week deadline was set to expire this past Friday. Fortunately, the government got it together, put together a deal, and stayed open for business. Shutdown 2.0 averted. The market was digging it. Icing on the cake were the updates on the China negotiation. We had two bigwig White House officials over in Beijing this past week, and they came out and said things were looking pretty good. But what really got the market excited was when President Trump came out and said that he's willing to let the March 1st deadline slide. That's pretty encouraging. It makes me think that President Trump doesn't want the tariffs to hit any more than investors do. So my view hasn't really changed. I think a deal gets done, so sit tight and stay invested. You know, the market's been pretty manic depressive these past few weeks. One week it's down, the next week it's up, and all these wild mood swings reminds me of the concept of Mr. Market. Mr. Market is an imaginary person that was invented to teach investors about the nature of the stock market. He was invented by an investor named Benjamin Graham, who you may have never heard of, but you probably heard of this guy, Warren Buffett. This gangster is one of the greatest investors of all time, and he's certainly the most famous. Can you guess who his mentor, teacher, and boss was? That's right, Benjamin Graham. So it's no surprise that Warren Buffett was heavily influenced by Graham's teaching, and he oftentimes refers to the concept of Mr. Market in his letters and interviews. So he's a character you want to be familiar with. Think of Mr. Market as a partner who owns half your business, and one day he comes to you and says, "I'll sell you all my shares in the company for $10. And then the next day he comes to you and says, "No, wait. I'll sell you all my shares in the company for $1. Now, nothing's really changed fundamentally from one day to the next in terms of the business. What's changed is Mr. Market's mood. He's greedy one day and fearful the next, and this helps explain how the market can sometimes behave. The important thing to remember is that you don't need to listen to Mr. Market. Honestly, sometimes it's best just to ignore his crazy offers, sit tight, and do nothing. But I get it. It's hard not to get caught up in all the wild swings when you don't have a view of the market, which is why one of the missions of this channel is to share information and my personal view so that you can develop your own outlook on the world. So when Mr. Market behaves like the wind and blows in one direction one day and then the opposite direction the other day, you're not whipsawed back and forth. Instead, you're firmly planted in Zen mode because you've developed conviction in a view that will allow you to stay the course and build that future towards wealth and happiness. So fam, let's get it. All right, hope you found this week's episode helpful. If so, hit that like button. And if you have some investment thoughts of your own, I'd love to hear them. Leave me a comment. Then be sure to tap and subscribe and stay plugged into the markets with me. Until next week, stay up and invest wisely.
Try not to cry on me now that all my dreams are manifesting. Faces